is up? What is new? Welcome into the double FU, the FU times two, the fantasy football universe. I am Jeremy Schulman, your host at FF_Rebel. We are the fantasy football universe. You can find us everywhere. We are on Twitter. We are on YouTube. We are all over the map, Reddit, TikTok. Please like and subscribe if you like the content. But today we're going to get into our ranking show and talk a little bit about where we have some of these consensus guys ahead of the Thursday night matchup coming up here in a few hours and ahead of your weekend. But first, it's been a crazy week for us. Jesse's out of power, so he's out of the mix. We hope he gets all of his stuff sorted real soon. We got SC and Aaron away. My computer and internet's not working. It's hailing outside. We got some storms over here in Amsterdam, and it is midnight. Who cares? We still ride here at the FFU, and we are going to give you everything you need to get ready for rankings. So first things first, if you have any questions about start-sit stuff, especially for tonight, drop it in the chat. We're going to talk about that after we go through all the rankings show. But feel free as we discuss some of these players. If you have some commentary, we'll throw it on the board. We'll talk about what to do at each particular position and how this is going to work out through the week. So thanks for joining us. And first, before we get into this, remember there are 6 teams on bye in our first of 2 bye-pocalypses, bye-pocali. I don't know what you want to call it. It doesn't really matter. But what does matter is you need to know who is on bye this week. It is the Atlanta Falcons and all of those offensive weapons, the Buffalo Bills, Cincinnati Bengals, so already terrible in terms of all the weapons that are out, the Jags, the Saints, and the New York Jets. So you're missing a ton of guys this week. You probably already know and already noticed this as you're going through waiver pickups and all that stuff. So now as you start to look at your lineups and figure out those decisions you're making, you're probably noticing a lot of grayed out guys that you can't insert into your lineup. So what do you do? Who do you play? That's what we're here to talk about today. So thanks for joining us again, and let's jump right into it. We will start with our consensus ranks. This is me and SC for week 12, and we'll start at the quarterback position. Here are our first 6 quarterbacks in order of consensus ranks. It starts with Jalen Hurts at the Los Angeles Rams. Jaden Daniels playing against Dallas. He's our number 2 this week. Lamar Jackson at 3. Bo Nix at 4, playing Vegas. Patrick Mahomes at 5, and Baker Mayfield at 6. One of the guys we should highlight here is Bo Nix. It's really interesting here having him up so high. This is relatively the consensus this week. I know he went off last week with 4 touchdowns and playing Atlanta, and they really just blew out the Falcons. Now they go to Vegas. It's a less friendly environment, but a more friendly defense somehow than Atlanta. They're middle of the road in terms of giving up things to the wide receiver position, but they do give it up to the quarterback and the running back. And I think the issue here that I like about Bo Nix is that the running back position in Denver is in a state of flux. We don't know who's starting week to week. Will Denver run the ball? Yes. But one thing that's nice about Bo Nix is he has been getting there without his own rushing ability over the last 2 weeks, just 5 rushing attempts for 0 yards and no touchdowns. And it is nice to see him not get there on rushing and still be the quarterback 12 and the quarterback 3 in back-to-back weeks without that the safety of that rushing floor. So Bo Nix is our quarterback 4 this week. It's a little high, I think, at the moment. We'll see how that develops during the week. But it is interesting at least to see him up this high. Bo Nix, one of the safest quarterbacks that you can play this season so far. Another guy to note here in this tier is Baker Mayfield. He is at the New York Giants. The New York Giants we know can get home, but the middle of the field is tough. In terms of throwing against the New York Giants. Their safeties, particularly Michael McFadden in the middle of that defense, also are able to kind of lock down tight ends. They are the worst matchup for tight ends, oddly. So I'm not sure how involved Cade Otton will be. But on the outside of that defense, especially Mike Evans back in the fold for Baker Mayfield and utilizing all of his weapons and the backside of the backfield, I think Baker has a nice day at New York. They're absolutely reeling. And certainly Tommy DeVito, we'll see what he's able to do against that Tampa defense, but I am not too confident. But that's our top 6. Again, subject to change. Jaden Daniels at 2 as well, playing a hapless Dallas defense. Something to look out for here as we move along. All right, moving on to our 7 through 12 quarterbacks. We have Kyler Murray at 7, Justin Herbert at 8, Goff at 9, Brock Purdy at 10, Tua Tagovailoa at 11, and Drake May coming in as our consensus 12th quarterback this week. That just gives you a sense of what we're dealing with at the quarterback position, both in the matchup play and all of the buys that we're experiencing. Kyler Murray at 7 is interesting. He goes up against Seattle. Seattle isn't giving up a ton to quarterbacks, mostly because you can run all over this defense. But at Seattle, one thing that's nice is, yes, James Conner should have a good day. Trey Benson is getting more involved. Amari DeMarcado is hit or miss in terms of his involvement, but he's always there. But we have MHJ and McBride back. I believe, I have to double check, but I believe they're off the bye as well. So Kyler Murray coming off the bye, 2 weeks to prepare, and we know that Seattle is going to be able to do some things on offense now fully healthy. DK Metcalf back in the fold. So I think Kyler Murray gets there not only through the air, but on the ground with his legs. It's these rushing quarterbacks. We talked about it with Bo Nix a little bit. Certainly he's got that floor, but absolutely Kyler Murray, one of the premier rushing quarterbacks, he has that floor also. Justin Herbert at 8, interesting against Baltimore, an atrocious Baltimore pass defense, but they've tightened it up the last few weeks. Something to watch out for is Kyle Hamilton's health. He was in and out of the game, I believe, last week and playing here and there. I think he's a full go. I haven't heard anything this week, but it doesn't really matter. That Baltimore back end isn't what we expected to be. The Los Angeles Chargers with the running game and the ability to play action pass off of that running game, Will Dissly going off and being one of the more consistent fantasy tight ends of the past month is really interesting as well for to add another weapon to Justin Herbert's arsenal, and Herbert has been going nuts. And then, of course, Jared Goff at 9 at Indianapolis. Indianapolis has been hit or miss, mostly miss on the defensive side of the ball. EJ Speed has been in and out of the lineup, which has really hurt that defense. Kenny Moore, who's been playing a lot of nickel for them this season, the last few seasons really, has also been in and out with some various injuries over the last week or two. But Jared Goff absolutely went off last week. He doesn't face a much tougher matchup this week, but he is at Indy. So something to keep in mind. This could be a ground and pound game for the Detroit Lions, but it doesn't matter. They're putting up 50 points seemingly every week. So it's something to consider. Jamie, what is up? Thank you for joining us. We appreciate you. I don't even have my brand stuff on. It is just an absolute mess here at the FFU, but we roll on. Let's say, hey, what's up to Brian, or Brain rather? Brain Burst says, I don't think the RB position is in flux. It's clearly Javante's job. Let's hope so. If there's an RB to bet on in Denver, I believe it is Javante. I never really understood the Audric Estime hype just in terms of Javante being there. We know Sean Payton loves to roll with one back. Yeah, Peyton seems to hate everybody on this team, with the exception of Bo Nix. He won't play Troy Franklin. He barely plays Marvin Mims, who got in the end zone last week. Greg Dulcich is basically out the door. Russell Wilson got kicked out last season or in the offseason. So yeah, it's really strange what Peyton's doing in Denver. The crazy part about it, though, is it is working. So we have to just keep in mind what's happening there. But all of that said, the Denver running game isn't necessarily one that you can rely on, is my point, week to week. You certainly can't rely on the backs yet. We'll have to see what happens with Javante this week. But I think Bo Nix is the one guy that you can rely on. And my guy, who we'll get to in a little bit, Cortland Sutton, who has been absolutely the model of consistency without scoring a ton of touchdowns this year, which is a bit strange. Again, if you have any questions or comments, please drop them in the chat as we move along. We will get to them. Dylan, I see your question here. We will get to it in just a little bit, but I want to finish these quarterback rankings first, and then we'll jump in. So that's our top 12. Again, there's only 26 quarterbacks playing. Hopefully, unless somebody gets pulled or injured, Danny Dimes makes a reappearance. Who knows what the hell is going to happen this week? But we'll go through and talk about the next 14 guys right now. Excuse me. At 13, we got Geno Smith facing off against Arizona. At 14, Jordan Love. 15, Jameis Winston. Absolutely slinging the rock, but he plays a Pittsburgh defense that is always going to bring it. So he's a little bit further down than we would expect here at 15. Matthew Stafford at 16, CJ Stroud at 17, and Anthony Richardson. Big day for Anthony Richardson last week at 18. Anthony Richardson was 20 of 30 last week, threw a touchdown, ran into more. This is the Anthony Richardson that we all expected to see from last season. We've seen it in small bursts. We saw it over the course of a full game here. It's exciting. Let's temper expectations. The Detroit Lions have been absolutely balling out on all levels of the defense. Their secondary is much improved. Quinyon Mitchell has been a revelation back there. And Brian Branch is doing Brian Branch things. So the secondary is in good hands, and they're growing and getting better week by week at this point. The loss of Aiden Hutchinson hurts, but Zadarius Smith, who hopefully is healthy. I don't know why he was laying on the ground last week, but we'll see if he plays the full complement of snaps this week. Either way, this defense is one to be reckoned with. So Anthony Richardson is this far down because I have him at QB 21 this week, SC at 14. I get it, but I just can't do it until I see it multiple weeks in a row from Anthony Richardson. Like I said, 20 of 30 last week. That's a 66% completion percentage. I think that's how math works. That is above and beyond his 44% that he's been averaging all season when he gets in, which is abysmal, by the way. But yeah, Anthony Richardson, we'll see. He also played the Jets defense. The Jets are just completely out of the playoffs. It's ridiculous. We can't really rely on anything that the Jets are doing and all of the production that's put up against the Jets at this point. Who would have thought that at the beginning of the season, but here we are. So I would temper expectations on Anthony Richardson this week against a much, much better team, even though he's going to have to somehow try and play catch up. So can he do it? It's possible. But that Detroit team obviously is very, very good. Anyone else here in this tier that we mentioned? Not really. Matthew Stafford is interesting at 16. I'm at 16. SC's a little lower at 18 on Matthew Stafford. He's been balling out. He's got a full complement of weapons. Everyone's healthy except for Tyler Higbee on that team right now, who apparently will be coming back soon. We'll see if the Rams have a chance at the playoffs. It seems unlikely, but a couple of things here. Number one, Kyron Williams hasn't scored in a month. I think that's going to regress at some point soon. So I am tempering expectations for Matthew Stafford. At the same time, they're playing Philadelphia. We just talked about Detroit being much better on the back end. Philly has been a revelation on the back end with their two additions. Who am I thinking of? Certainly Cooper DeJean. And the better one, who's been better back there, the rookie whose name escapes me at the moment. Ryan's in the chat. Ryan knows who these guys are, a big Eagles fan. But you know who I'm talking about. You know what I mean. The Eagles have been fantastic and really a team that you want to avoid in these passing game matchups when you're kind of thinking of starting up a wide receiver against them or even a quarterback. But Matthew Stafford and Sean McVay are so good. Those wide receivers and weapons are so good that you do have to play them. You do have to kind of hope for a big game. AJ Brown, again, I'm fading in my expectations. I'm not necessarily fading the players too much where I won't start them. Maybe one exception rather would be Matthew Stafford here as well. A couple of things here. Let's just pull these up. Let's see what we got. 27 QBs, Justin Fields. Yeah, we'll see what I appreciate that, Jamie. We'll see what Justin Fields does. God, we'll see what Russell Wilson does. He has been really bad. I mean, we all know that the Steelers won that game off the back of 6 Chris Boswell field goals last week. So that team needs to get better. They need to figure it out at quarterback. I don't know what the hell is going to go on, but we will see. Let's power through the rest of these quarterback rankings, and then I will get to the couple of questions in the chat that you guys have posted. So just bear with me 1 or 2 more minutes here. Starting with Russell Wilson at QB 19. It's a super juicy plus matchup at Cleveland for Russell Wilson. He should be able to get it done to George Pickens. He should be able to get it done to Mike Williams. I don't know. I can't trust it. He's my QB 17, SC's 19. Sam Darnold at 20, Caleb Williams at 21, just facing a tough matchup here against Minnesota. Will Levis at 22, Tommy DeVito, starting quarterback of the New York Giants yet again this year at QB 23. He's got a juicy matchup, which is why he is not the last quarterback on this list. He plays against Tampa. Minshew at 24 versus Denver. Yikes. Bryce Young, double yikes against Kansas City. At least those two games are home. And then Cooper Rush had a good game last week, but you want to talk about a secondary and a defense that is balling out in the last month, but plus it's Washington. Cooper Rush goes into Washington. No, he doesn't have to deal with the gigantic window in his home stadium, but he does need to deal with Dan Quinn, Jeremy Chin, and a couple other guys from Dallas last season who went over to Washington now. You better believe that Quinn is going to want to show up and show out against a really, really bad Dallas team this week. So a couple of things to keep in mind here. First of all, Bryce Young, he gets Adam Thielen back. He may get Tommy Tremble back at tight end. JT Sanders has been more integrated and involved. Coker and Leggett are coming on. But he gets KC. I mean, Kansas City has not been this super shutdown defense over the last couple of weeks, but at the same time, Steve Spagnuolo is going to bring it. He knows exactly what's going on, and I very, very much doubt that Bryce Young is going to be able to do much in this game. I hope I'm wrong. I would love to see the youngster ball out and hand Kansas City their second loss in a row. But I think we all know that is very unlikely to happen. Anyone else in this? Sam Darnold is an interesting name. He's hot, he's cold, but he's playing against Chicago. He's going to have to keep it close to the vest, I think. We know Chicago has those outside corners who are absolutely locked down. When you talk about their secondary, they're really a top-notch unit. They did lose Jaquan Brisker. I'm not sure if it's for the season or for an extended period of time, but I don't believe he's playing in this one as well. It's I just think it's going to be something where Minnesota is going to have to tone things down, have to use the center of the field more. I like Hawkinson. I like Aaron Jones as a result. Don't necessarily love Darnold or Justin Jefferson, although you always play Justin Jefferson. So that's our top 26. If you want to play Fields, as Jamie mentioned, because of his 17 rushing yards last week, you absolutely could. But those are our QBs right now. And that's where we're going. And